Good evening and welcome to this Tuesday, September 20th, 2016 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me remind commissioners, please speak into the mic for the record and make sure your microphone is lighted when you're speaking. We'll call roll. Commissioner Anderson.
Present.
Commissioner Berenson.
Present.
Commissioner Bowie.
Present.
Commissioner Crane. Commissioner Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Meiske.
Present.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present.
And Commissioner Faulkner is present. We do have a quorum. No personal appearances this evening. One item on our consent agenda, acceptance of minutes from our September 6th, 2016 meeting. And unless any of the commissioners have concerns, I would either entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda or a motion to accept the minutes as you wish.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Anderson.
move that we accept the consent agendas as presented, please.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Meiske to accept the minutes. Okay. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 1, 2, 3. Mayor Turnbow?
Yes.
7. And any opposed?
Abstain.
And Commissioner Sarsfield abstaining.
Since I wasn't here.
That's all right. So let's see, that vote is 7 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. And we'll move ahead to old business. There is none this evening. So we'll move ahead to new business, case 16018, Raymore Activity Center, conditional use permit in Recreation Park. And since the city is the applicant, I guess, Mr. Carteret, would you like to introduce the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I am prepared to give a staff report. What I'd like to do is call on Assistant City Manager Meredith Hawk. She'll be making the presentation this evening, and then I'll do the staff report following that.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you again. I'm here this evening to present on our second building that we are constructing as part of our bond projects for the next 3 years, and this is the Activity Center and Recreation Park. This building will be, once it's constructed, taken over by the Parks and Rec Department, and it will mainly be used as a gym. It's a large gym space, which I'll go over in a second. It'll have a walking track and some bleachers, but it's not a community center. It truly is just an activity center. It's a multi-purpose room with some offices and some support space attached to it. So to get started this evening, here is the overall site plan for the new building. You can see that it's located in a spot of Recreation Park that is currently empty. This is just south of the current park house. To orient yourself over to the west is Madison, and then of course we have that main entry drive leading into Recreation Park. So on this slide right now, the building that we are constructing is the building that's shaded in gray. We have designed the building to account for an expansion if we choose to do that at some point in the future, and so the building has been oriented specifically on this site to allow for that at some period of time. And then you can see the parking layout is on the east side of the building, and we have about 75 parking spaces available there. Of course, for larger events, there's considerable more parking in Recreation Park that can be used as overflow parking, etc. There's also space on the grass where you can see the existing soccer field labeled that can be used as parking as well for the space. So when we first got started, we were looking at a couple of different layouts for inside of the building, and so you can just see 4 of these quickly as a snapshot. This space will have a full-size basketball court. It will have 2 half-court volleyball courts. It will have a walking track that goes around the exterior of the court, and then there's also an option to use the floor space for event space if needed, although the majority of our special events that would need a table setup situation will be over at the Municipal Center building when that is constructed. This will mainly be a recreation space. This is the image of the inside of the building, the layout. So you can see that, so this is twisted. The support space that is on the right side of the screen actually is on the south side of the building, just to orient yourself. And so, of course, we have the large gym and walking track space. You can see at the top of that image are the bleachers that come out, and there is space for 200 people on the bleachers. And then if you look at the floor plan, you can see we have a foyer space, we have some staff space. This is where the day camp will be held, so we need some space for staff to, put their personal belongings, etc. Then we have 2 sets of restrooms. There aren't locker rooms in this facility. And then we have storage space and, of course, any electrical closet. Like I said before, this isn't a community center. This is more of a place that you'd come and have league play, something like that. This is an image of the interior of the gym. This is facing south, so you can see the foyer is at the top or kind of the middle of that picture. So it really is just a big open gym that will have bleachers that come out on the left side of the screen, and then we're facing the support space. And there will be those windows at the top of both the north and the south elevations of the building. We are looking at, the park board has been in discussions on what do we do with those windows to make sure it makes it easy for people inside the room to play without getting glare. So that's a conversation we're having, but we do feel it's really important, obviously, to have some windows as part of that. So we want to make sure they're placed appropriately so it doesn't impact play. This is the outside of the building. This is walking in from the parking lot. So you can see there's an entrance plaza. We're continuing some of the woodwork that we have incorporated into the Municipal Center building. So there'll be some continuity between these 2 spaces. The one change, just looking at this immediately, that will be changed based on feedback from Park Board and the City Council is right now those wood slats are white. Those will be changed to a natural wood finish to provide some additional contrast. We're also looking at the location of the sign on that building. Right now they have it facing towards the parking lot. More than likely it will go on the opposite side of the building, the west side of the building, so that you can see the sign as you're approaching from Madison and turning into Rec Park. And then this is the view of the building from the current park house. We are facing south, and so essentially you can see we're looking at the back of the building and the west side of the building where the sign will be placed. This is the sign with the side with the windows is facing north. The other side is obviously facing west, and that will be the approaching side of the building. And the challenging thing with this building is there really is no back, based on how the park is oriented and how the building is oriented. And so we've been working with the architect to make sure that it has to be in some essence 4-sided design because you're gonna see everything. So we've had a lot of conversations about where utility boxes go, exit doors, that sort of things. But this west wall is also the wall where expansion will occur. And so if the building were to get bigger, that's the wall that would come down. And then this is a view from across the lake, so essentially over at the skate park, looking back over at the building. And then just a quick FYI on the schedule, we're gonna be ready to take this out for bid in the next couple of months, and our hope is to have it open by late November in 2017. So we're moving right along on this building. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes. The membership fees or dues, is anyone that came up with an idea of what it would cost for family or individual to use it, or?
Sure. So this is, like I said, this isn't a community center. This is a space that will be used mainly for rec league play from our Parks and Recreation. The Parks and Recreation Board is still working for what sort of access people would have to the building as not part of a rec league that's already established. The majority of the time it will be programmed with city programs, but we do expect that there will be open gym time at some point during the day, open time for people to come in and walk on the track, but I would expect most afternoons and evenings that will be programmed by Parks and Recreation. So the short answer is we're still working on that right now.
So some sort of ID card to show that you are a resident of Raymore. If you're not a resident of Raymore, is there a fee that'll be accompanying it? Are they,
We haven't had any further conversations about that yet.
okay. And how many staff will be working there?
So right
A
now,
minimum? A minimum for an average usage.
at least there will always be at least one person in the building. Usually, if we're having league play, there are coaches and other support staff in the building supporting the league play. Of course, if a day camp is taking place, all the staff members who we utilize to support day camp will be in the space as well. Right now, there isn't a plan to have a full-time dedicated staff located in that building. It'll just be as programs are programmed there, those staff members would utilize it. A lot of the things happening in this building right now are things that are happening in school district gyms or other spaces that we're renting and utilizing. So essentially, we'll be moving them out of those facilities into one of our own facilities.
And the hours?
We haven't decided on that yet either.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Sarsfield. Other questions for Ms. Hawk?
Yeah, I've got a
Commissioner
couple.
Bowie?
I got a couple of them. So far in the building, no exercise equipment, none of that is planned at all? This is
Correct.
Okay, and maybe a staff member will be there during the time that it's rented out, and maybe not, or what have you?
During the time it's rented out, there will always be a staff member there.
Okay. Can you put it in perspective? I haven't really seen the numbers, but put it in perspective in terms of size. Square footage of the main floor there?
Sure. So it's the building is 19,000 square feet collectively, but it is the big gym space is essentially a full-size basketball court. So if
Okay.
you imagine that, it is a simple full-size basketball court. It can be used either that way, or we can use it crosswise for 2 half-court volleyball courts.
Okay.
So it's just a gym with a track around it.
Is the design of the building such that at some point it could go to a second floor?
Not at this time.
Okay.
We may consider that as part of the expansion. All we're looking at right now is how can we accommodate an expansion at that point. If you think about High Blue, it's my understanding that that started out as simply a gym and some support space, and then as they expanded on, they added a second story in their expansion. So that might be something that we consider. But right now, we just want to make sure it's oriented in such a way we have options to expand it moving forward. Likely in the gym space, it'll probably only be 1 story to allow for the necessary clearance there.
Right. And in terms of expansion from a footprint standpoint, I think that's what you're looking at in terms of expansion. You mentioned the other half of that would be expanded. Are there any constraints or limitations to that potential expansion? Obviously, streets and things like that, housing that's near there, but I guess that's down the road. Let me see. Okay, same AE or different AE than the new annex over here?
Different. This is SFX.
Okay.
SFS
Shaughnessy
Architects.
Fickle. So totally different design.
Yep.
But still within the same concept, so to speak.
Correct.
Exterior-wise. And then where are you at in terms of design? You said 70%, 80%?
Yeah, we're hoping to have these documents finalized in late November. So we're wrapping things up. We've had our meetings with the Parks Board and received their go-ahead on these concepts. We've met with the City Council and received their go-ahead as well. So we're deep in design work.
Okay, so you'll be going out in a couple months for the construction piece? Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
it.
Commissioner Pfizer?
Are they going to try and get any LEED certification for this facility?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Berenson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One really quick question. So the sign that we have on the building, is that an artist rendering, or is that going to be the actual sign?
No, that's an artist rendering.
Okay.
We haven't even decided on what the name of the building
Okay.
will be yet.
Okay. And you had mentioned that we may change the sign from this side to not west, but one of the other two sides probably.
Probably to the west side.
Okay,
So
even
that
though-
as you're approaching from Madison, you
Okay.
can identify the building easy.
Is it an option for us to put the sign on more than one side?
It is an option, and it's something that we've talked about.
Okay. That was all I had. It looks nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Bowie?
Staying in the same vein as signage, is there any planned monument to be outside in terms of up and down Madison right there near the roundabout?
There isn't. We're considering this right now just one of the features that's in Recreation Park. So it will likely be programming it like the activity center at Recreation Park or using that as the landmark that we're orienting people towards.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Mr. Cataract, if you would, give us the staff report on case 16018, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, this evening, what the Planning Commission is considering is when we have publicly owned land, such as Recreation Park, anytime the city proposes to construct a public building on public land, it does require a conditional use permit. So that's the reason for being here tonight, is to ensure to the public that the proposed facility, the use, the site plan, the layout of the facility, the location of the facility is appropriate for this particular park. In your packet, I included a number of photographs trying to illustrate how the property lies on the, within the entire park area. We do show the Shadowwood subdivision, which is north of the existing park house and north of the existing trail that's on your site plan here. The distance between the closest house from Shadowwood to the facility is a little over 400 feet, just to give you an idea of the distance. The property is zoned PR, which is our Parks, Recreation, and Public Use. And again, because we are proposing a public building, we are holding a public hearing this evening. We did advertise that in the Journal newspaper. I do need to enter into the record the notices that were sent to all the property owners, and this was all property owners that lived within 185 feet of the entire perimeter of Recreation Park. So we didn't just limit it to this one area. We did go around the entire boundary of the park. Of course, the publication of the Journal, our Unified Development Code, the application that was submitted, our growth management plan, the staff report submitted to you this evening, and the conceptual site plan and conceptual building elevations. I did include again in your staff report the requirements for considering a conditional use permit. Just a brief note on previous actions that happened within the vicinity of this proposed facility. Recreation Park established in the 1980s. The phase 2 of the Shadowwood subdivision was approved in December of 2002. That established the lots that are on the northern boundary of the Recreation Park area. So Recreation Park, in essence, is an 80-acre tract that we also purchased the 10-acre park house tract. That's how we come up to the 90 acres for the entire park. And then again, phase 2 of Shadowwood is what abuts the very northern end of the Recreation Park area. The zoning of this property was established in 2009. That's when we went through the city initiated zonings and created the Parks and Recreation zoning district. And then the Public Works facility, which is to the south of Recreation Park, there was a conditional use permit approved for that facility back in 2004. So those are some of the actions around the property. As was mentioned, the building contains approximately 19,000 square foot. Parking requirements in the public parks is not established by code, so it is established depending upon what use is coming in. For this particular facility, we're proposing 75 parking spaces right there at the facility. That's a parking ratio of 1 space for 250 square foot, which is a very standard parking ratio. Commercial facilities, for example, retail facilities require 1 space for 300 square foot. Assembly spaces, it really varies upon what the use would be, depending upon how many parking spaces would be necessary. As Ms. Hawk indicated, there is overflow parking available within the vicinity of the facility should there be a large function that demands a lot of parking. The building itself is basically going to be a masonry block building. It's going to have some ephes above the masonry block. That's, again, a requirement for our design standards. There were clear story windows on the south and north side of the building. Pedestrian access, there's an existing trail that goes through to the north of the proposed building, and there would be sidewalk connectivity to that existing trail to provide pedestrian access. Most of the other design elements of the site are site plan design elements. We show you this layout because we want you to have an idea of what is being considered for site plan. If the conditional use is approved, site plan would come back to the commission for formal review. That's when we look very closely at the parking layout, the landscaping around the building, the screening of any outdoor facilities that service the building, utility services, et cetera. We address stormwater runoff at that time, and any other thing, utility connections, et cetera, as part of site plan. For the conditional use, we have submitted proposed findings for your consideration, and we do ask and recommend that the commission accept those findings and forward this case to the city council with recommendation of approval, subject to one condition, that be that the site plan application shall be consistent with this conceptual site plan and building elevations submitted as part of the conditional use permit application. Again, minor modifications are permitted as final design is completed. Similar scenario that we did with the municipal center building behind City Hall here. So we want to give the neighbors some assurance that that is generally the building location, the parking layout, and the design of the building, but it is going through final design. There may be some minor tweaks, but you wouldn't suddenly see us propose a facility at another location in the park without coming back to the neighbors and to the commission and council. So this is generally, we're trying to lock in that this is what we anticipate to see at site plan. I did hear from one of the neighbors that were notified within Shadowwood subdivision, just had an inquiry, no objections to the proposal. But again, this is a public hearing, so I would be available for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Carteret. Before I open the public hearing on case 16018, let me ask that anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this case, please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. I don't think we're going to have a problem this evening, but we normally ask that you limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes, and don't repeat verbatim what's been said before. Just state that you're in agreement with the previous position. So having said that, I'll open the public hearing on case 16018, Recreation Park Activity Center Conditional Use Permit. And if anyone would like to speak on this case, now's your chance. And seeing no stampede for the podium, I'll close the public hearing and open the floor for further discussion by the commission.
Just want a quick question.
Yeah. Commissioner Bowie?
In terms of parking, and I'm always trying to look five years out, 6 years out, 7 years out as population increases and so forth. In terms of parking, looking at the rendering you have in front of us, is the parking, is the expanded parking that may take place or could take place down the road, would that be located just to the east of the current parking in that area, or what is the thought process in terms of expansion of parking?
Ms. Hawk?
Thank you. Yes, the thought would be to continue to expand the parking to the east, and that's where if the building is expanded, where we would look at. We are continuing to refine the alignment of the parking lot to fit as many spaces in that area as we possibly can to help prepare for that as we move forward. But parking would expand to the east.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Height-wise, in terms of height of the building, was that mentioned anywhere? I might have missed it. 35. It might have been mentioned, yeah.
Tall enough to clear a basketball.
Yeah, yeah, at least.
I get volleyball.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was, in terms of the exterior, is what I'm looking at.
I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
How tall the gym is?
Maximum building height is 35 feet.
Okay, max 130 feet.
For
Okay.
parks.
Okay, thank you. He was looking on page 8 of the deal there. At the bottom of page 8, it gave some standards.
Well, right, maximum building height
Yeah,
and
that's
all.
just max.
Yeah,
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 okay, thank you.
all right. Commissioner Anderson, you have a question or comment?
I do, but I'll keep it to myself.
Okay,
It
now,
was more of an aesthetic
now you,
comment.
now
but-
you've got me
but I won't
really
get on-
curious.
Yeah, I won't get on that soapbox, so I'll leave it alone.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Well, so this is conditional use permit for the use. We get another whole angle during site plan. Okay, good. Mayor Turnbow?
Meredith, could I ask you about the parking lot a little bit? As it shows in the picture, the parking lot is fanned out. And since we've changed the design of the structure itself to run perpendicular to School Road, and for expansion purposes, if we added to that and added on the parking lot, it would seem to me it'd be easier to kind of square the parking lot as well in order for an easier expansion to that program. If we've already kind of looked at the potential for expanding the facility in the near future, are there other designs being considered for the parking lot structure? I know you said those are ongoing plans, because it would seem to me if it was more square in nature, it would be easier to design that outward further rather than in the fanning process that it's in right now.
Yeah, so like I said, we're having conversations about the parking lot and the orientation of the parking lot right now.
Okay.
Obviously, our goal is to make this as easy as possible to expand when the time comes and to allow for the majority of people to be within a close distance to the building. So we are working on refining that a little bit right now.
Yeah, I like the circular drive at the entrance. I was just, and that's probably where that arch grew from, but I was thinking if that was the only circular part to that, it might be a little bit easier to expand that parking down the road.
Absolutely. The drop-off area is a key feature that was requested by the Parks and Recreation Department based on the use in that building.
Yep.
So that is where that came from, but we are looking at parking as
Okay,
well.
thank you.
And I would imagine at site plan, some of those spaces will have to be designated for handicapped and so forth. So I think there's a lot more detail between now and the site plan. Yeah, if you want to stay, we're notorious for running you back and forth.
I do. I have another meeting at 7:30
Oh,
for the
well,
Public Art Commission.
It's
so-
almost there. Any other
Yes.
questions for Ms. Hawk before her next meeting? Okay.
Thank you.
Back to the commission. We can fight amongst ourselves now. If there are no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion on the case, but Commissioner Anderson,
Mr.
please.
Chair, I'd like to entertain a motion. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you've got the floor. It's
Okay.
all yours.
I'll move to accept the staff proposed finding of facts in Ford Case 16018 Raymore Activity Center conditional use permit request to the City Council with the recommendation of approval, subject to the following condition as presented.
Want to read the condition, or?
I'm being lazy, but I'll do it.
No, that's all right. I'll restate it in a minute.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Sarsfield, I'm going to give you the second. Faster on the button. All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Sarsfield, to accept staff proposed findings of fact and forward case 16018 Raymore Activity Center conditional use permit request to City Council with recommendation of approval, subject to the following condition, and that is that the site plan application shall be consistent with conceptual site plan and building elevations submitted as part of this conditional use permit application. Minor modifications are permitted as final design is completed. Mr. Zerg, sound okay to you? All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise a hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. Ran out of fingers, sorry. 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. And thank you very much. We will move on past new business, and our next item, Mr. Zur, is City Council report, if you would, please.
Thank you, members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be able to join you. I apologize for my tardiness in being able to come in. We had a Charter Commission review meeting going on next door that ran a little bit longer than anticipated. I will be happy to report to you with regard to the City Council meeting which occurred on September 12th. That was the one City Council meeting that's occurred in the interim since your last meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. As always, I'd invite Mr. Carteret as well as Mayor Turnbow to chime in with any additional information that they feel would be helpful for you and your consideration. Only a couple of items that had any real impact with regard to this Planning and Zoning Commission on the agenda for September 12th. First one was a second reading and a final adoption of the permanent closure of the access drive at 1918 West Foxwood, which came before you on 2 separate occasions after having been bounced back by the City Council for notification purposes. That has now been fully and finally approved. The next items are under new business, and they are part of the first reading that has occurred. One is a schedule of fees. So schedule of fees will be approved, and that only impacts you not as a commission, but more as citizens of the city of Raymore. Fees related to activities within the city have been adopted or will be adopted as part of the City Council's, hopefully, the next meeting. The next item I've got is the purchase of 108 West Olive Street. Again, this is not something that's directly related to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it does fill out the remainder of TB Hanna Park so that you have the full quadrant available for expansion and full development of TB Hanna. Again, that's more as citizens of the community and less as Planning and Zoning Commission individuals. And finally, I'd like to make sure and point out that last week was identified and recognized by our fine mayor as Constitution Week. A resolution was presented to the Daughters of the American Revolution for your local chapter by the mayor, and it is nice to be able to recognize a long-standing document that has given guidance to our country for as long as it has, especially in light of our most recent charter review discussion, since it is kind of the Constitution that we live by as a city. So that is all I have for you as a City Council report from September 12th, and again, invite either the mayor or Mr. Carteret to chime in with additionals.
Comments? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zur. Mr. Carteret, if you would, we'd love to hear the staff report and planning pipeline.
Thank you, sir. Just looking at the calendar for cases coming up, meetings ahead of us, we do not have anything currently scheduled for the October 4th meeting. So our first meeting in October, I believe, unless the commission feels otherwise, we could look to cancel that meeting. We do have items scheduled for the next couple of commission meetings after that. So October 18th, we have 2 items now on the schedule. The Timber Trail subdivision is coming in with what they're calling their open space plat. So this was partly requested by the city. What this would do is plat the right-of-way that will be necessary for the city to extend Johnston Drive from Foxhaven over to Dean Avenue to make that east-west connection. And then the land area south of that roadway was to be dedicated to the city for neighborhood park area. That's part of the Timber Trails master plan. So since we're getting the right-of-way dedicated, they're also platting that public park area. Currently, there is a private, there's a city trail that goes through through that parkland area that they privately dedicated an easement to the city years ago for us to construct the trail. So knowing that at some point in time it would be parkland. So that's a very straightforward plat. We also have a preliminary and a final plat coming in for the 7th phase of Evanbrook subdivision. So Evanbrook has been a subdivision that dates back many years in Raymore. Mr. Evans was a developer of Evanbrook. The 7th phase was the last one, but to be done, but it just never got started. The grandson is the current property owner. And he is working collaboratively with the city and coming forward with the 7th plat. So you may have heard Mr. Fearborn talk about the extension of Sunset Lane. That was discussed at part of his presentation previously to the commission. Sunset Lane was determined by council to be an important north-south link that we needed to have. Sunset Lane exists in Dutchman Acres, but then we have that gap, 500, 600-foot gap. So that was included in this year's budget for the city to construct Sunset Lane connection and also a Bristol Drive connection to connect Brookside to Sunset Lane. The developer is coming forward, dedicating the right-of-way as part of the roadway construction, but also is going to have Sydney Lane, which is the first street to the east of Sunset Lane, extended down currently as a dead-end street. So in essence, he is finishing the Evan Brook plat. This has been planned for forever, but of course, the preliminary plat expired because there was such a long gap, so we're going through that public hearing process as well as with the final plat. So you'll see both of those come forward in October. We've been having some discussions with some of the neighbors already because they've heard some of the things that are going on. But we'll bring both of those to you concurrently in October. In November, I believe it's November 1st, we will actually have a meeting that evening as well. And coming up on that agenda, we anticipate a couple of different projects, site plan for the Panda Express that's been talked about at the Cadence, the Raymore Marketplace development. And we possibly will have a site plan for the activity center should that go through council and get their approval. So those are currently the cases we have that we're looking at coming forward. And I believe that would conclude staff report at this time, sir.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Catterett. I don't have any issue with canceling our October 4th meeting since we have no business. Do any of the other commissioners have a strong feeling about meeting on October 4th? Nope. Seeing none, let's cancel 10-4, and we will plan to meet with items on the agenda on October 18th, Mr. Catterett.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'll open the floor for public comment. It would appear that our public has left, but it was good to see a few members of the public this evening, and so seeing no public wanting to come forward, I'll open the floor for commission member comment. Let's see. I'll start with somebody that I don't usually start with tonight, and who would that be? Commissioner Berenson, do you mind going first?
No comment tonight, Mr. Chair.
Well done. Commissioner Anderson?
I was going to thank Meredith, but she's gone, so I'll keep it to myself once
Well,
again.
actually, maybe she'll watch the tape.
Yeah, I'll see her
You
later.
can still say thank you for her presentation.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Pfizer?
Yeah. My first job was actually with Shaughnessy, Fickle, and Scott, who designed this
Wow.
building. And it was a few years ago. And they did great work then, and I think they still do. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
Good. Glad to know that. Commissioner Sarsfield?
Nothing at this time.
All right. Commissioner Meiske?
No comment.
All right. Commissioner Bowie?
No real comment other than, no comment, sorry.
Now you've got me just wondering. Okay, Mayor Turnbow, you'll have to pick up the slack.
Well, just to remind folks that we do have the one opening in Ward 1 on City Council, and as of 5 o'clock on Thursday, the 22nd, those applications will close. We have 2 that have applied from Ward 1 for that position, and the council will do an interview process for filling that open position in the coming future. So if anyone's interested in serving on the city council and then running for that seat for a 1-year term in April, that is one of the things that priorities for the council to take care of.
But you have to live in Ward 1.
But you have to live in Ward 1, that's
And I
correct.
think, what is it, 6 months minimum, or
Might be a year.
might be a year?
Might be a
Well,
year.
anyway,
I'd have to check it.
you have to have lived in Ward 1 for a while. That'll exclude about 3/4 of this commission,
No.
fortunately.
Anyway, that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'll thank city staff, Mr. Catterett, Mr. Zur, Mr. Eanes. And I will thank Ms. Hawk as well for the presentation. It was very nicely done. I think she's begun to get used to us. She doesn't stray too far from the podium because she knows we're going to call her back, but that's a good thing. Thank you all for the service this evening, and it might be one of our shorter meetings unless anyone has any other comments. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Commissioner Maisky, thank you.
Second.
And was that Commissioner Berenson? All those in favor, raise a hand, please, and I hope we have 8 at least. Thank you. We are 8-0-0. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Chairman.
Oh, hello.
In response